Hey there, my name is Nick, and let's talk about optimization and the need for reducing costs in taxonomy. First of all, why does any sort of optimization show up in nature? Evolution shows us that the fittest species is the one that survives. To be able to exist in the long run, a species needs to adapt to its environment to live. We find that initial life starts out in a bacterial form. Without a need to reproduce asexually, the bacteria does not continue its lineage. The need is not good or bad necessarily, but simply exists as a condition of life itself. Those bacteria that reproduce live on, and the ones best at reproducing are the ones that end up having the most chances at mutating positively. Eventually, as is noticeable by pretty much everyone, life becomes more complex than at the bacterial level. There is more to life than simply reproducing and eating, and many species end up fighting for survival. The amount of data that we need to process is enormous. Even creatures as small as ants need to find a way to process this massive 3D world around us. So, in essence, we need to find a way to reduce the amount of data that we're processing and also make sure that it leads to something beneficial or something optimizable. Neurons help with this by corresponding to and or forming links from the memories we have. No matter what the beginning scenario is, the mind is able to associate details about the many factors that go into prior world states to a reward, and reinforces those connections for the future. When world state sequences with familiar characteristics happen, the neurons can simply fire instead of connecting to a new network. In this way, they provide reduced cost responses to stimuli. This process is similar to what is used in a regression, or taking in data from multiple dimensions and seeing how it contributes to the likelihood of a variable, or the increase in the amount of a variable. What we strive to do is to make sure that every piece of data, the x's, contribute a certain different weight, the betas, towards the outcome, y, or the probability that something will happen. We should also be aware of beta 0, which is the average value the food takes if none of the x's deviate from the average. There is also error, which are the variables we have not made a distinction of, and hopefully the variables that don't interact with our understanding of what makes the outcome happen successfully. Let's assume that we're discussing hunger satiation. What are the different factors that contribute to it? Which ones of those are tangible, and how can we make them salient to us? How many different samples do we need before we can convince ourselves that we are sure of the right optimization? To be able to change these optimizations, an individual needs to learn how different things contribute to benefits or detriments they know about. Before language and other complex forms of conveying information are had, the idea behind changing optimization takes repetition and intuition. We may think that refined grains like white rice and white bread are ways to get satiated because the flavor and calories is more in tune with what our primitive needs are. But after some time of corresponding whole grains with better satiation, we can figure out that there is something else that comprises the feeling of satiation. In this way, we can learn or change the understanding of the brain. By slowly feeding data that transforms how the different variables lead to an outcome, and with trust and time, the mind can be trained to accept a different correlation that could be more beneficial than the one prior. Remember that the benefit of changing your way of thinking must be more beneficial than what the prior process was. If not, the agent may choose not to change their thinking, because it is too costly to move from wherever they were at the moment to this more beneficial, but not beneficial enough, optimization. Remember that optimizations are not necessarily used to optimize the benefit of the outcome. They are repetitive world states that lead to an understanding of how to get to a certain goal. To really truly get a beneficial optimization, we need to turn to science and causality through statistics to be able to find what factors really contribute to certain outcomes happening.